Hi guys, welcome to this new video. Today I'd like to talk to you about a topic that I only recently realized had been, over time, a trauma from my school years, that is, crying. I'll probably share my school experience, spoiler, not a pleasant one, in another video, but in this video in particular, I want to talk about how crying in over 14 years of school made me unconsciously believe that it meant being weak or led to not being taken seriously. Before and during elementary school, the only influence I had in my life came from my parents and my brother, an influence that, at the time, affected me more than I could have imagined. My brother was a goofball. He never took me seriously, always joking and messing around at home, which didn't bother me back then, but since I had no friends or contacts outside of my family, I ended up behaving with my classmates the same way I behaved with my brother, acting silly. And since I was talking to other kids like myself, I quickly became the weird kid. Everyone avoided me and took every opportunity to tease or even physically bully me, but honestly, I don't want to blame them. They were just kids like me, still growing up. During that time, because I was a child with, unfortunately, a terrible influence at home, I often made mistakes I wasn't even aware of. Sometimes I hurt a classmate, other times I was extremely annoying or I pulled really irritating pranks, which understandably bothered other kids, and they would complain openly about me in class. When they did, in the blunt but honest way children do, without worrying about their words, it hurt me deeply, and I often ended up crying in class. The other would sigh or forgive me, almost forced by the teacher. I felt very humiliated at the time, but I couldn't understand what I was doing wrong. I just wanted to make people laugh or talk with them, but having always been influenced by my parents and brother, I didn't realize I came off as very annoying and unpleasant to be around. Moving on to middle school, not much changed. I was still stuck in that same bubble, not understanding what I was doing wrong. Let's not forget, I had never made real life friends up to that point, only online ones, because my parents always kept me shut inside in the house in front of a computer or PlayStation, and being a child, I eventually got used to staying in and lost the desire to go out. Anyway, in middle school, the situation didn't improve much. I remained the annoying, lonely kid, not because I enjoyed being irritating or playing tricks, but because I wanted to be funny, to make friends. Unfortunately, I always went about it in the worst way possible, but I don't blame myself. In terms of bullying from others, I think this was the peak period. During physical education, I was almost always excluded because I didn't know how to play soccer or basketball. Kids often threw out comments like, "You suck at this," which made me cry frequently in class. Just like in elementary school, people comforted me, almost out of obligation sometimes, with heavy sigh in the air, and I could clearly see they saw me as some sort of burden when I cried. That gave me a very strong impression that I was just a weak kid, something that, over time, unconsciously led me to bully others myself. Luckily, that phase didn't last long. By the time I got to high school, my behavior fortunately started to improve, thanks to the influence, for which I'm still deeply grateful, of my best friend and the experiences I had with online friends. My life, after all, was almost entirely online. The first 2 years of high school were pretty normal. Like in elementary school and middle school, I never really had the will to study, so I rarely took teachers seriously. Also because many of them didn't take me seriously either, but that's a story for another video. In my second year of high school, I had my first relationship. I'll talk more about that in another video too. But in short, it was a disaster. It lasted a few months, and since it was the first relationship for the both of us, and we were just kids, we both made a lot of mistakes. After that, I decided to change school for a variety of reasons, many of which were tied to my online friends. I switched from a vocational school to a science focused high school because I genuinely wanted to learn scientific subjects. I was so determined that I even asked to repeat the current year at the new school so I could understand the subjects better. During this time, I hit the peak of my insecurities. On top of not knowing how to talk to others due to my extremely limited real world interactions, I felt incredibly lonely. The conversations I initiated barely lasted a minute. At that time, I met a girl. I won't say her name, but she was truly wonderful. I wanted to get to know her, to really understand who she was, but sadly, I was terrible at talking to girls in general, for reasons I'll explain in another video. Seeing others and this girl laugh and joke together happily while barely anyone even spoke to me made me feel really alone. Very often I would ask to go to the bathroom at school just so I could cry silently while in the phone with my best friend. In class, I managed to make a few close connections. One girl in particular, I talked quite a lot. I often called her to go over study topics, talk about my life, or how I was doing, and she was always very kind. But over time, I realized that the feeling was never mutual. I don't mean I fell in love and she didn't feel the same. I mean I doubt she ever really saw me as a friend she wanted to get to know. I was more like someone who was pushing himself into her life, if you know what I mean. She never really talked about herself, never shared anything unless I asked, and even then, only the bare minimum, like most others really. Those times when I cried in class because of grades, which I'll talk in another video, or due to personal breakdowns, some classmates, I have to say, were extremely kind and came to comfort me. But once I felt slightly better, everything went back to normal. I remained alone and sad, and the cycle repeated itself. I met a few friends in real life, but I chose to cut off those relationships as much as possible, another topic I might explore in future video. Every time I cried in class during high school, and it happened countless times, seeing people come comfort me never really made me feel better deep down. It made me feel weak and fragile for every little thing. Well, everyone else seems much stronger than me. The feelings of humiliation or loneliness weren't the only reason I used to cry. There were times when I'd be feeling really low, and an old Minecraft soundtrack would play, and suddenly, nostalgia would hit me. Just thinking about how time has passed, remembering those carefree moments playing with my friends when we were younger, it overwhelmed me. I'd often find myself in tears, wishing I could go back to those simpler days. Over time, I've come to understand that crying is deeply misunderstood nowadays. It has absolutely nothing to do with being weak. Honestly, I can't even define exactly what makes someone cry. My experience tells me that crying is a sign that something really matters to you, or it's a response to receiving something, whether it's words or a realization that hurts deeply. But I know there's more to it that I still don't understand. I'm truly sorry to anyone who maybe has felt extremely weak or believed that crying means being weak in certain situation. Well, I guess that's all for today, guys. Feel free to share your stories and opinions about it in the comments if you'd like to, and I'll see you in the next video. See you guys.